How can it be the case that so many leaders in the church these days have so little love for Holy Mother Church? They do not share in her pain. They do not feel the hurt she encounters every day. Their mother is laying on her sick bed, and they do not visit. She is hungry for souls, and they offer her nothing to eat. She thirsts for her children to visit her, and they never do. Only a few times in her sacred history has the Church experienced such profound neglect from those charged with taking most care of her and attending to her. How much her pain increases that her own sons, her shepherds, disdain her and ignore her. They don't sit by her bedside and hold her hand. They offer her so little delight and ease from her sufferings. The crisis the Church faces now is unprecedented. We are in never-before-charted waters. There are similarities with past crises, to be sure, but each crisis has its own individual hallmarks, and this one is perhaps the most unique of all. The faith of hundreds of millions of souls has been so destabilized by unfaithful and unresponsive clergy that there is no historical comparison. In medieval times, you may have had horrible cardinals and bishops, greedy, lusting, hell-bound clerics, which we did, of course, but they and their evil were not commonly known by the average Catholic. With today's technology allowing instantaneous communication and transmission of error and evil, everyone knows about everything, or at least knows something, and that something that they know shapes their perception. The difference between the crisis and the other three great crises in the Church's history is the speed of the destructive power and the near total global collapse of the ranks of the clergy in the face of it. We've always had corrupt clergy, go back to Judas, and we've always had to deal with deeply entrenched heresy and dissent. But the speed and the power of this crisis, coupled with the near ignoring of it, and even participation in it by clerics, does make it unique. Why isn't there an actual unified response on the part of clergy to this crisis? What's the plan? Well, mostly because most clergy, especially bishops, fail to either understand the scope of the crisis, are too scared to do anything about the crisis, a kind of spiritual paralysis, do not actually believe there is a crisis, or, most disturbingly, they see the crisis as a good thing, believing that the Church needs to change her practices, if not her doctrine. And when we look at each of these four specific areas, we begin to understand more deeply. First, many bishops simply fail to see the scope of the crisis. They're so involved with things on a local level that they never really pull their heads up long enough to view the larger landscape unfolding before them. Their concern is their own diocese or parish only, as if what is happening in the broader cultural context, all the things out there, doesn't really concern them. Then there are the leaders, this is the second category, who, as men, are just, well, as we used to say as kids, fraidy cats. They're too scared to make a move. They get the crisis, at least on some level, more or less, but they are petrified that however they respond to it, something bad is going to happen. They think in terms of, well, my actions will make an already horrible situation even worse. They think in terms of saying the unvarnished truth, for example, about sexual morality will drive even more Catholics from the pews, decrease collections, and speed up the rate of decline. There is a third category of leaders who simply do not see a crisis. Perhaps they're just so unplugged and insulated by their own bureaucracy and whirl of activities, they just don't have any vision. Their personalities are such that they just always look on the bright side to the absolute detriment of dealing in reality. They are, in short, Pollyannas. And then, of course, there are those men who want all this confusion because they feel the Church needs to change and be more accommodating to the world, accepting sinful situations, for example, as having some inherent good, and so forth. This fourth category of leaders is the most dangerous of all because, whatever their motives, they are the agitators. They are not weak or ignorant like their brother bishops in the other categories. They are insightful and active and cunning and plotting, and they make things happen. Some in this group are truly wicked, evil men, hiding behind their robes who actually despise the truths of the faith. Others are just blinded by their own weaknesses, what they are constituted as men and their own personality flaws, that they fail to make the connection between their actions and the resultant destruction of the faith. But whatever the motives, these in the last category are creating the crisis, and those in the other three categories are assisting by their inactions. And none of them can actually love the faith because they do not possess the gift of sacrifice. They do not have, down in their guts, fortitude-charged charity and zeal-inspired fire for the faith. Our blessed Lord will come to the defense of his holy bride. He already is. He is, for the moment, allowing this terrible crisis to befall her, as he allowed his blessed mother to stand witness to and share in his agony on Calvary. If the current sufferings of the church, my fellow Catholics, do not wound you deeply, if you do not suffer for her and with her, then you need to check the depth of your faith and question how much you actually do love. At the end of our time here on earth, we will each be judged on how much we loved. God love you. I'm Michael Voris.